Hi everybody, welcome back to Plastic Models by Regular Dude and the Bandai 1/72 scale X-Wing Starfighter. So in this episode, hopefully it won't be an hour and 40 minutes like the last one, but you know, I get carried away. It's time to do the rest of the painting and do the painting that is specific to Wedge's ship. So now, last video I was kind of concerned about the color I had chosen for the inside of the wing, but in looking at this, the color callouts, and I got this online somewhere and I can't remember where I got it. This is not my stuff, so I had to and I printed a copy of it so I'd have it readily available. But you've got red, says insignia red, but I'm going to use just flat red and add a little bit of probably whole red to it just to tone it down a little bit. Or maybe a brown, I'm not sure yet. I'll mess around with it. But aggressor gray, which I'm assuming is the overall color. And we have gunship gray for this segment right here, and it looks like the bottom, just the bottom back. So for this episode I need to do the remainder of the paint. So I found this online, can't remember where I found it because I looked at so many different things, but it gives a breakdown of the colors. So you have insignia red, which I'm going to use flat XF7 red by Tamiya. Insignia red is a little, it's got just a little bit of a, maybe a little bit of brownish tinge to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add probably some XF64 red brown. I'll have to experiment and see the mixture I'm going to need to make the color I want, but that'll take care of all the red for the sides, the little stripes on the top of the engine nacelles there, or the intakes, whatever you want to call them, and then also the markings specific to Red 2 Wedge Antilles ship. So then I need to use aggressor gray, I guess, is the overall color according to this call out, but that's already done. Gunship gray, which I'm going to just use a dark gray, probably XF24, which is a nice dark gray. It's not too dark, but it also doesn't have any weird tinge to it, like say this dark green. It's kind of a grayish green, or RLM gray, which has just a little hint of a greenish tinge to it, to my eye anyway. So I'm going to use just this one right here, and I think it will match pretty well with this color here. So that'll be the gray that I'm going to use. Then I'd expressed concern about this color here, but apparently it's not too far off from most of the things I've seen. This calls for Dinkelgelb, which would be XF60, but I'm actually using XF59, which is just a little more orangey looking, maybe, that I used in there, and that's what I'll use for all of these markings here on the nose, on the sides, and then lastly I'll be using XF3 for yellow for this panel on the bottom, and then there's another panel here that is yellow. So the first thing I need to do is I need to start masking, and I think I'm going to do the yellow first, since it's the most, or not the yellow, but the XF59 first, since that is the color that's the most of the color that I'm gonna have to add. So I need to get my tape, and we'll start taping this baby off. So basically what I'm going to do for the wing parts is I'm just going to use the demarcations I have here and just pull it across the top. So for instance, I'll put this like that, and then pull it across, and I'll use that line right there and kind of eyeball it, and it should match up on the other side, which it does. So we got that. Okay, so that takes care of the outboard part. Now when I mix these paints up, I'm going to be doing the same thing I did with my overall color. I'm going to be mixing some XF22 clear with the color, so I get good performance from my washes and stuff. I want it to be consistent. So again, we'll just stick that right there. That. Trying to do it with my left hand so you can see what I'm doing on camera without me blocking it. Not very ambidextrous, but there, and then fold that under there so that matches up good. Okay, then we got one more there. Generally what I like to do is I like to use a thinner tape, narrower tape, and because it's easier to work with. It's easier to work with, and then I use my larger tape, my wider tape, to fill in and to cover the bigger stuff so as not to get overspray or anything. Okay, so there's that. Then I might be able to use my wider tape for this. So let's see. And notice that I'm using the flat edge, the 90-degree angle here to start my tape, and then on the back is where it'll be kind of lapped over, you know, at an angle. Like that. And then, yeah, it's not going to work like that because of that large piece there, so I'm going to have to use my narrow tape for that as well. It's the 6mm. 6mm and 18mm, those are the two that I use. Anything else I can cut if I need to. They make a lot of different widths in this tape, but those are the two that are available locally. And they seem to work pretty good because I can cut narrower stuff if I need to, or build it up if I need to. Okay, let's see. Yeah, there we go. That looks good. Okay, just to double check, because sometimes when there's angles, it can look off. It's going to be hard to check. You know what? I'm just going to go with it. That looks pretty good. Okay. I'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to continue with this on these other parts. You don't need to watch me doing all of it, and then I'll come back and we'll do some more. Okay, I've got this taped off here, the part I want to do first. And the reason I'm doing it this way is some of this back in here needs to be the yellow color, so I'm going to have to open the wings up a little bit to get touched in there. So this is what I'm having to do right now. So I got this taped off so I can do the desert yellow. I've got these taped off because there's portions of these cans that need to be the desert yellow. But the first thing I need to do now that I've got this taped off is I'm going to spray just a little bit of hairspray on these sections here, because I want to use the hairspray chipping technique to get the paint to be kind of worn looking. So I'm gonna do this off camera. I don't want to do it over my desk, but it's real easy. And let's see, I need to put a little bit more tape in here to keep it off of those parts of the can in there. Now I could decant some of this into something and use my airbrush to do it, but I don't think that's going to be necessary. Okay, so that looks good. All right, so I'm just going to give a quick shot there, and there, and then let it dry. Okay, I went ahead and mixed up my paint, and I mixed up 1 part X20 thinner, 1 part paint, 1 part clear. I've already got my hairspray on, it's dried. So I'm gonna give it some real light coats because I don't want it to dissolve the hairspray by getting too much and getting too wet of a coat on there. So I'll do a few light passes top and bottom, and then I'll spray the other parts. Like that. Then I'll do this. The end of that one. Into that one. Middle of that one. Middle of that one. Now, another coat on there. Another coat on there. Yeah, it's not dissolving the hairspray, so I'll be good here. All right, so then we need to let that dry for a bit. All right, next up, I need to mask off the side portion here. So I'm going to work on that and come back. You've seen how I mask, and I'll do it and come back and show you what I've done before I start painting. All right, I got everything taped off, and I already started spraying, so I want to make sure everything worked okay. But as you can see there, it's all working pretty well. Now, just as an aside, and this is why I like Tamiya paint, I dumped my paint out of the cup into this little bottle just so it'd be ready to go. I meant to clean this out, and I didn't. But because it's Tamiya paint, it didn't skin over and act all freaky like some of the water-based acrylics will do. And I was able to just carry on spraying with no problems. So that's one of the reasons I really like Tamiya paint. Now, you can see I'm getting messy around this canopy. I am not using that canopy on this kit. I'm just using it as a mask. So, all right, so there's that. Now, that pretty much takes care of all of the, what's referred to on here as Dinkelgelb, but in my case, Desert Yellow XF59. So that takes care of all that. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit. I'm going to clean my airbrush, and then I'm going to come back and once all this is dry, I'll tape off for the red. Actually, I'll tape off for the yellow down here on the bottom, and then I can let everything cure up overnight and come back and tape off for all the red and for the red 2 markings here. So I'm gonna clean my hair. All right, here's what it looks like. Turned out pretty good, so I'm pretty stoked. So the next part I'll do is this part underneath, which is this panel here. So that one will be really easy to tape off and paint. So I'm going to go ahead and tape that off real quick. Okay, I got the yellow painted like that. So the next thing I need to do is I need to mask off for the actual markings for this particular ship. I need to mark that, or mask that, then I need to mask off for the rest of the red. So what I'm planning on doing here, I'm going to see if it will work, is I'm going to use the stickers as opposed to the decals, and I'm going to use the outside edge of the decal to make my mask. So we'll see how that works. So let's try, or at least for part of it. So let's see what it does. Now I already tested these on another piece of painted portion of the kit, and it's not going to peel the paint up, so I'm good there. Okay, so I got that. So this decal here would work on this one or this one. Now it's all going to depend on how well that sticks down. So let's see, I'm going to get my straight edge here, and since I'm doing red 2, I need to leave these. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to cut this and this, this and this out. And hopefully that will work. So let's do that. And that. Turn it around. Let's see, let's do this. Now this just may not work, but I'm hoping it does. Okay, we got that. That. So let's peel that off. this works, because it would save a lot of work. Let's see. Yeah, I think this is going to be my weak spot here, but we'll see. Okay, so we got that now. Let's peel this outer part off and see what it looks like. Now, what I could do, the only problem is I could use the decals, but the problem with the decals is it'd be really hard to match that paint, I think. I don't want to have to mess with that. Thank goodness this material that these decals are made out of is kind of springy. Like, yeah, that's a separate part there. So, yeah, I think I'm going to be better off just winging it with some masking tape. I think that's what I'm going to do. I think that would be easier than trying to do that. And then, let's see, let's take a look at if I could mix up a paint that would match that fairly well. I could use that. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to experiment a little bit, see if I can match this paint. So I will be back in a minute. All right, so as you can see, I've done something different. Now, I said I was going to experiment with the paint, and I did. Now, this here is, I think it was two parts X7, which was gloss red, and 1 part XF64 brown. Now, it's kind of okay, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to try something. I got 1 drop of my just whole off-white color, and boom, that is really, really close. But it doesn't matter because that's not what I'm going to do. So I started looking at it and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to mask this sucker off and paint it. All the colors the same color. Now I'm going to use that mixture I came up with because it's perfect. But here's what I've got so far. I've got that taped off for the primary piece there, and then I'll tape off the hash marks. But at first I was, going back and forth. Do I want to, make masks, or do I want to order masks? Because I can order some masks, but it would take, I wouldn't get them till Friday earliest. I really don't want to wait. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to make these. And here's what I did. Just eyeballing the markings on my illustrations. I used this here to make my initial delineations there, and there. Then, using this as kind of a template, I discovered that the 6mm put along this line here, that's just this panel line that's just up from the edge of the wing, the S-foil, gives me the exact length I need there. So that gives me the basis of what I need to do. So the next thing is I took some of my wider tape and cutting it at an angle like this, so I get a nice sharp corner. I kind of eyeballed what I needed. Now I measured it and I saw what I needed as far as the measurement. And the measurement is just about exactly the width of this part that goes in the top. So I use that to measure. It's a lot easier than trying to do it with a ruler or scale. Okay, so that is just about perfect. Now this one here, for this one here, no, it's 3 millimeters wide, and that one's easy to measure with that. It's just because of that being in there, it's hard to get a measuring device in there. But anyway, so I cut at an angle again. I just put it in place, just kind of eyeball it, make sure that corner is nice and lined up, then measure it. 3 millimeters, 3 millimeters. So there we go. So that is good. Now, the next thing I do, get another piece of tape, and it lines up right on that panel line right there. So that's fairly easy. Just put it right there like that. And voila. And then, last thing I need to do for the actual template itself, whoops. Oh, come on. Is cover this exposed edge here. All right, like that. And then once I'm ready to actually paint, I'll do more masking up on the sides and stuff like that, so I don't get any overspray. I generally don't because I spray directly down, but I just do that to make sure. Then once I get all of that masked off and painted, and it dries really good, then I'll come back and do my hash marks right there. All right, well, I have this masked off and ready for the red. I'm going to go ahead and mask off what I need to mask off here for the red as well, which is basically this whole strip here up to that angled part on both sides. Then I also need to mask off along the edge here for a red stripe, because there are on Wedge's ship, it shows that the top has a red stripe there and there, so I need to mask those off as well. So real quick, like, we'll take a look. Get it masked off. It starts right all along that edge, and that's crooked, so I need to straighten it up. Now, in hindsight, I probably could have done this painting before I ever assembled the thing. But having never built one of these kits before, okay, there's that. Now on this, I'm going to have to do it a little bit differently because it's got that lip right there, so I'm kind of I may have to spray that red, then tape it off, and then come back and spray that white, because I don't think, yeah, that's not supposed to be red there. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do that. I'm gonna have to spray some more white, or this whole color, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to get this taped off and then come back and show you what it looks like. All right, so I got everything taped off, excessively so, but red seems to show up kind of easily if you get some overspray, and I don't want that. So again, I mixed up my red color, which is 2 parts X7, which is gloss, that way I don't have to add any clear to it, and XF64 red brown, and a few drops of my hull color. So let us get this in the cup there, and then we will spray it on here. So let's see if I'm going to do this. I'll spray this little stripe first. Okay, let's spray this. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Now hopefully, with 2 layers of paint on here, my hairspray chipping will work. If it doesn't, I'm going to have to fake it with some sponge chipping or something, which, you know, not that big a deal. As you can see, I'm spraying at an angle this way so I don't get any red paint on the front there. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Okay. I'm not too concerned about getting a 100% solid opaque all the way around, because I'm thinking these Rebel scum would not be too worried about a really good paint job on these things, just because being a Rebel army, they're going to be needing to make things happen and get hopping pretty quick. So that's my theory anyway. And it's not a cop-out to be lazy and not paint it right, because that is the look I'm going for. Hastily applied markings. Okay, so there's that. So now let's flip it this way, and looking pretty good there. Trying to keep my overspray to a minimum down there so it doesn't take too much color to cover that up. So I think that's pretty good. So we'll let this dry a little bit while I clean my airbrush, and we'll come back, take some tape off, and see what it looks like. All right, so now I got the last two little parts masked off, and I'm going to do the same thing again. Spray them real quickly. Didn't have to do as extensive a masking job as last time, but I did have to mask it. Now, real quick, like in my update video for the month, I noted that I got these bottles. So far, I really like these. Good bottles. I like them. So let's get these sprayed. I'm really eager to see what these look like once it's done. Because I was thinking the masking would be just a real pain, but I was pleasantly surprised that it was much easier than I thought it would be. So gotta say, I'm pretty stoked with that. So clean my airbrush, we'll come back and take a look at what we've got. Okay, so I got the hash marks painted. I've got the top edge of this little lip painted. So the only thing I have left to paint are a couple of gray portions. On the bottom, this part here, I have to paint this down here. And it looks like it's just that part there has to be painted gray. And then I need to mask off and paint that part gray right there. And that'll be easy to mask off. And for that, I'll be using dark gray. So let us begin taping that stuff off. Should be fairly simple, because this is just getting painted there. Like that. Sometimes it's hard to get it lined up. It's kind of hard to see, actually, in this light. There we go. All right, so we got that. And then need to paint this part right here. So we got that, and I am gonna have to touch up just a little tiny bit right there. That's the only spot that my tape wasn't as jolly as I was hoping it would be, but you know, it turned out pretty good anyway. These nice panel lines make it real easy to get this stuff masked off. Now, some of you may be saying, why are you showing me all this tape? Well, I'm just kind of trying to show you how easy it is. Like that. This is going to take a little more work, so I'll come back and we'll get that painted and we'll get that painted. All right, so I got that sprayed, and I think that is the last of the paint that I'm going to have to do on this kit. Everything else will be weathering. But let's take a look and just make sure. But anyway, so I got that sprayed there, so I can put that back. Actually, I need to put my droid back in there. So we'll put that back into place there. And then this goes back here. I'm glad I didn't glue that on because it was easier to mask just doing it off of the rest of the aircraft, or the X-Wing here. I said I like Tamiya paint and how awesome it is when it comes time to peel tape off of it and everything, and how quickly it dries. I'm literally not having to wait any at all. Okay, so there's that. So that's that. So that concludes the paint. So the next thing I think I will do is I think I might go ahead and put these on, and I will need to put one decal on because I'm not about to paint it, and that is this decal here that goes on this here cannon business, laser cannon or whatever it is. So let me put this on here. Now this is where you can tell that paint on the part makes a difference, because it is super tight. So I'm going to have to clean that up just a little bit. Because there is a little bit of paint on this end here. Now normally, believe it or not, I tape stuff like this off because I don't like gluing stuff with paint on it. And that's just me. A lot of people, there we go, perfect. All right, so that's that, and then we'll go ahead. So let me scrape the paint off these real quick. All right, so here it is. The next thing I want to do is start working on some filters. So the two colors I want to use Abteilung ABT 093 Earth and 050 Olive Green mixed in with the Earth. I don't want to just use the green. I think it might just make it too weird looking, but we'll experiment a little bit and see. So I need my brush. Put just a little bit of color in there. Get my odorless thinner. Again, any odorless thinner will work. This just happens to be the Obtailing brand, but as soon as it's empty, I'll be filling it with my bulk stuff. Alright, so let's mix this up. Okay, and let's test it somewhere somewhat inconspicuously to make sure it's not going to discolor it too much. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah, that's gonna work. So I'm gonna do that there, and I'm blotting it off on a paper towel. Let me get my paper towel over here so you can see what I'm doing. Getting most of it off. And you can see it's just ever so slightly changing the look. And I think what I'll do is I'm pretty much going to go over the whole thing with this color, and then I'll just add the other color over top of it, because I don't want to get too much into... I'm doing the filter first, and then I'll come back and do the wash. A little glob of something. Oh, that might have been tape or something. Come back in and do a wash after this dries, probably overnight. See, it's already warming up the color a little bit. Just to change the tone of the color a little bit to where it's not quite so stark looking. Oops. Should have been working on that one. I'll go ahead and do all of this one since I started it accidentally. Trying to get pretty even coverage so it doesn't look weird. Okay, now let's go back down here. Now, there's might be some of you watching this that are really into the whole Star Wars thing, and you may be saying, well, why'd you use that color there, and that little design there doesn't work? I had to use all kinds of different references, so it might be different than some versions of this same thing, but I just went with what I had. Didn't want to get too crazy and get into all the niceties of what might be different or whatever. So for those purists out there watching this, if it's wrong, sorry. I'm sure you'll be fine. And you can secretly laugh at me and mock me behind my camera lens here, because I'm not all that knowledgeable on this stuff. And remember, this is just the first step of many in the weathering process. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to be doing this, and then this will be the end of this video. Once I get all this done, next time we come back, we'll be doing panel line washes, pin washes, and get into some of the other weathering, because it's going to take a bit, and I don't want to have a 2-hour long video going. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to do the rest of this off camera. We'll come back. Alrighty then, here it is. I got the filter all done on it. So I want to let that dry really good. So I think the next thing I'm going to be doing, starting with the next video, is we'll start out with some pin washes, and then once that kind of dries, then we'll move on to like some of the soot and streaking and some chipping and stuff like that on the colored portions of the paint. And then pretty much after that, it'll be ready to wrap up. I am going to do a little bit more work next time on this base as well. Try and get it to not look so monochromatic in that gray. So I'll do some little bit of weathering and adding some paint to that. So anyway, that's it for now for the Bandai 1/72nd scale X-Wing Starfighter Red 2, piloted by Wedge Antilles. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, put them in the comments section down below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And as always, thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and I will see you all later.